afternoon. The time is 1:14 p.m. This is the CHamoru Land Trust Commission regular meeting. A continuation of the November 21st, 2024 regular board meeting. Today's date is December 2nd, 2024. This meeting is now called to order. There's a quorum present. We have a certification on public notices requirement for this meeting. We'll start with roll call. Commissioner Dave Rivera.
Gaizo, Senora, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Earl Garrido. Commissioner John Jeffrey Ibanez. Thank you. Arlene Badali, Chair. Present. Approval of the minutes of August 15th. There were corrections made already.
Madam Chair, if I may, the resumption is, we stopped at the lot 7161-R1, public law 37-125.
Okay.
Okay, 5D, 5D.
Yeah.
Okay.
So present today is Mr. Birch and Mr. Adat from Guam Motor Sports Association.
You want to continue?
Shall was the sign-in sheet? I'm just signing. At the last meeting, the last discussion was GMA was supposed to take back the proposed lease, go over it line item by line item. As mentioned by Commissioner Ibanez, and today we're supposed to pick up the discussion where we left off. The rate and the area size hasn't been determined yet. So then present today is Mr. Adam and Mr. Birch.
Good afternoon.
Yep, for the record, Hans Zada, Chairman of Guam Motorsports Association, Vice Chair John Mertz Jr., Guam Motorsports Association. Thank you guys for taking the time to meet us again, before our deadline of December 10th. We wanted to lead with a video from the Guam Motorsports Association, and it basically covers the community, the motorsports community of Guam, and the positive impact that the raceway has had on the motorsports community.
Did you ever have the opportunity to go out and look at all those functions as far as the car
Sorry, it's
show,
not on the
display?
screen.
The camaraderie there is very, very strong. Each and everybody respects each other. And
Oh yeah, just make the screen bigger.
Right in the bottom there. That right, it's on the right. The 4 points.
To make it bigger.
It's actually because I had to tell people before that we have no place to race and come together as a battle.
Hi, my name is G, and my favorite part was winning the trophy in 50cc class.
so much good experiences with family and friends and new riders coming out. Just being around in that spirit and community with them. There's a lot of good intentions with everybody going out there and racing, and just having the same spirit, I guess you'd say.
Just watching that little boy ride, just meant the world for me. It was just amazing to be riding next to my little boy and teaching Sherman the ropes, so to speak.
It means a lot. The race really means a lot to me because me as a father, I would bring my kids there to watch other racers, whether it be off-roading, dirt bike riding, or even playing with RCs, you know. We would bring them there just another outlet rather than the beach, right? There's nothing really to do in Guam, and it was just a fun place for to bring the kids, you know, if I wasn't racing or if there was no shows to join.
Let's see. We've always been heavily into the motorsports scene. I mean, you know, we've seen it grow, we've seen it over the years, how much it's changed off-road, the dirt bike track, you know, horse drag racing and stuff like that, so yeah.
The challenges is just not having a place to do what we love. And it's so sad knowing that the younger generation that, you know, maybe only now became of age or got their license and would want to exercise it, just like I said earlier. When I came of age, that's all I wanted to do. So it's sad that they don't have that same opportunities, and then they're possibly doing it out on the streets now and putting other people at risk.
Since it's been closed, I understand and I see it now that some of the guys are taking their enthusiasts out on the streets, and it's causing a hazard to our community.
Exercise what it's there for, stop, take it off the streets, take it out of the sale, only skills, and let's do it real, let's do it legit, so that hopefully we can compete with the rest of the world.
Growing up, it was a family thing. My dad, Uncle Pete, we used to race. He got me into it.
Already lots of years now, building, participating in the event, and it's really been a huge part of our life and being part of the community to get tapped in.
Us cyclists, you know, the Raceway Park is a great place to ride because you can ride it year round.
The raceway was more like a second home. After school days, we practice, ride, hang out as a family. So it really brought us together and really became a second home for us.
My first experience was cool because it was my first time riding dirt bike. What drew me to the community was COVID-19. My dad brought me to the track and I loved it.
That's what makes it so unique, because it is a competitive sport, and the sport needs to be in a controlled environment. And we can't have it out in the streets. And my main emphasis here is that getting the track back up and running will curb, it'll curb drag racing on the highways and streets of our island, and it'll save lives, that's for sure, believe me.
Thank you for allowing us to play that. We just really wanted you guys to see, you know what I mean? Like it's all ages. This is a place where the young can act old and the old can be young again. So this affects every aspect of our community, you know, every part of our family. So thank you for allowing us to start with that.
The last item that Commissioner Ibanez had brought up prior to our recess was if you guys were able to have your board review the draft that we did send you guys, and if you guys were in all agreements with each term. But given that you submitted, prior to the recess, you submitted another proposal, and I believe it was passed out to the board, each member got a copy of it. There's a slight difference. For example, the proposal submitted by GMA, there's an automatic renewal. The term is left blank. Then it mentions about the renewal process. Each renewal term shall commence automatically without further action by either party unless, and then it gives, and then the rental rate of 1,000. I believe those are the only differences from the draft that we provided to GMA. What happened was in the beginning, because we needed to get a handle on the drafts going back and forth, we requested that any term or any condition set forth in the draft that should be replaced by either party strike out, and then when they add something, they underline, so that we're able to know, going back and forth and being able to track it more efficiently. So, Mr. Anna and Mr. Birch, given the last request by Commissioner Ibanez, were you guys able to take a look at the draft that we had provided your organization, and is all the terms except for the period, the area size, and the rental rate, was it acceptable?
Yes. Yes.
Need a copy.
Yeah, this is the one I made somebody. Just make 4. We're providing a copy of each draft for the board.
Madam Chair, well, while we're waiting for copies, can I just go over, based on what they submitted in their business plan, areas of concerns before we move into the negotiation of the lease itself?
Go first.
Does everybody have a copy of that?
First, we have to match what we have given them versus what they offered.
I mean, if you like, we can go over the,
Yeah, what
Their
were
proposal.
the items that they wanted changes?
does everybody should have a copy of their business plan? It's in the packet.
Yeah, here's the
You guys have all your copies already?
Yeah.
Okay. So like we mentioned earlier, the only difference that we were able to identify was the rental rate, the automatic renewal, and the area size. Okay. GMA is proposing to pay $1,000 a month. But the area size hasn't been addressed. So the board would like, we hope that you consider today what would be an acceptable rate to the board and the area size, so we can finalize the next draft and present it to GMA, given that they've already proposed $1,000 a month. Unless we consider Commissioner Ibanez's suggestion, and we can go over their business plan and give the board a better idea of what they may be able to afford monthly in lieu of the $1,000 a month. Did you guys need to talk? Or you guys have?
Me and Stu wanted to just make sure, just double check. You guys see? Just want to make sure you're handing out this.
Did you guys need to copy of our proposal? Oh, yeah.
Is that the first one that you gave us?
The last,
Oh, yeah.
the most recent.
Previous one.
One more copy.
Yeah.
So Madam Chair, would you like to proceed with Commissioner Ibanez going over their business plan that they have submitted, just to give everybody an idea of their financial capabilities?
Well, I think we should know how big of an area we're talking about, or we're going to make a decision on before we even consider the rental, or if they're capable of performing or not.
That's what I think the first thing is you look at the financial back, and then you can move into all the other factors to consider. Once you get a clear picture of where you stand, then you can have a much clearer picture of how much, whether it be of acres that they need, whether it be the 60 you were recommending in the past, or the full 252 or 250.
Mr. Burke?
Yes, sir.
In our last conversation, you were able to compromise in the area for your footprint. All right?
Yes, sir.
We go based on the history, it initially was 40, and then it was 50, then it was 60, and then you guys shot it up to 120?
I've always been a proponent of the necessity of 150 from the get-go.
Or 150?
Yeah, I've always been right around there. I knew we didn't need all that property, but I knew that we did need a certain amount for the future.
Because
But
if you were to downsize and remove the walking trails, and I guess walking and hiking is the same thing, right?
yes, sir.
If we eliminate those areas and just stick to your off-road, your drift, drag, and motocross, what would that area come to?
About 102 or 105 acres. Without without any of the cycling paths, the hiking paths, or the walking. Yes, sir.
So about 102 acres.
Correct.
Since our last conversation, were you able to plot out that area?
Yes.
Yes. So I actually have the map to the CLTC admin email.
Less the hiking and walking?
Correct. And we also, what we did was we minimized the width of that drag strip, because initially it was a little bit wider, but we minimized it so that we can
The
narrow
drag
down.
strip?
Correct. Because I think the initial plotting was a little bit wider than the actual strip was, so we were able to minimize that number too by trying to be as accurate as possible.
Can you provide us with that plan, the downsides?
That should be posted in a second in the monitor.
Don't have the access to you. You just sent it now?
Like 5-10 minutes ago. It's,
5 to 10.
I can show you which email it is.
Sent it.
Only certain staff has access to the admin email. She doesn't, so they're gonna log in too quickly.
Okay.
Oh, was emailing it? Okay.
Everybody had a good weekend over there? Good Thanksgiving?
Trying to open it. Maybe it's just,
There you go.
So it'll be, just to clarify, it'll be everything that's inside that blue perimeter, which is highlighted green.
Disregard the yellow line. That's the mountain bike trail.
That's, everything else was what was once used. So what the 100 to 102, 102 to 105 would be everything inside that blue border. And those are, that's the answer to your question. That eliminates the walking path, the hiking trail. Yes.
In your proposal, you're offering $1,000 a month.
Correct.
How did you come to that number?
Well, it's basically what we could afford, and taking into consideration the additional monthly fees that are gonna be attached to this leasehold. Of course, the insurance, and property tax, those were the biggest ones. Then we also wanted to consider maintenance, grass cutting, everybody knows. If we were to one day hook up utilities, that had to be taken into consideration also. And that's really how we came up with it. We wanted to keep it as minimal as possible in every aspect so that we can make it affordable for our community to use.
Well, at this point now, this is where Commissioner Banas can jump in and scrutinize your projections.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Madam Chair, if I may?
Go ahead.
Commissioners, Madam Chair, the GMA, I review your business proposal, the business plan itself, and I want to give a basics of how the plan operates and how we're looking at it. And the business plan financial projections, based on what you presented, were several alarming issues that emerge that could pose significant risk to the CLTC, and protecting CLTC as the beneficiary of what we're trying to do, and the sustainability of the lease agreement. First area of concern, Madam Chair, and members of the commissioners, is the thin financial margins that is showing in the business plan. The financial projections in GMA business plan indicate a very tight margin, leaving little room for unexpected expenses, revenues, shortfalls, or operational challenges. For instance, even under optimistic scenarios, GMA's annual net income appears to be minimal or non-existent. When we look at the risks in regards to the thin financial margins, any revenue underperformance or cost overruns could result in GMA defaulting on rent or other obligations. Reliances on sportsmanship and event revenues is highly optimistic and may not materialize at the projected levels. Number two, the over-reliance on sponsorship revenue. Observations on their business plan, basically a significant portion of GMA's projected income depends on sponsorships, which are inherently uncertain and highly competitive. The risk associated with that is sponsorship revenues may fall significantly below expectations, especially for a new organization with limited track record. Failure to secure sponsorship could jeopardize GMA's ability to fund operations and meet community obligations. Number three, you have the limited operational experience. GMA is a newly formed nonprofit with no demonstrated operational track record in managing a facility to this scale or hosting complex motorsports events. Being a new nonprofit organization. On the risk level, you have inexperience could lead to operational inefficiency, mismanagement of funds, or failure to deliver promised community benefits. Initially, underperformance could strain the resources and damage CLT's credibility for leasing such a large property. Number four, you have the weak community engagement plan. While the business plan references community engagement, it lacks detailed, actionable strategies to develop tangible benefits to low and moderate income groups. The risk GMA's operational could become overly commercialized, prioritizing revenue generation over community impact. Failure to deliver measurable community benefits could violate the lease intent and legislative mandate. Number five, the ambitious event revenue projections. GMA's financial projections assume high attendance and significant revenues from events such as drag racing and car shows. On the risk side, you have the attendance may be lower than projected, especially in the early years when the organization is still establishing its reputation. Overestimation of revenues could lead to financial shortfall and unmet obligations. On number six, you have a limited transparency on expense allocation. The business plan does not provide sufficient detail on how funds will be allocated to cover operational costs, community benefit, and required maintenance. Poor expense management, which we're talking about a risk, could lead to deferred maintenance or reduced community benefit, The lack of transparency may hinder CLTC's ability to monitor compliance with these terms. And the last one is the inability risk mitigation for revenue shortfall. The business plan does not account for potential risks such as poor weather, economic downturns, or competition from other recreation facilities that could impact attendance or revenue. Revenue shortfall could lead to non-payment of rental or failure to fulfill obligation, creating financial risk for CLTC. And I talk about this here as a revenue shortfall, although this is a recreation that they're trying to start up. It's up, if another event came up, that may have a big hindrance on their ability. So overall, Madam Chair, based on their business plan, identified seven areas of concern, key areas of concern that may pose significant impact. With that in mind, when we do go into in more depth into the lease agreement, I do have proposed plans on how we can mitigate this type of risk. But we'll move forward if any of the commissioners have any questions in terms of this analysis on the business plan.
Thank you, Commissioner Ibanez, for your analysis on their business plan. Any discussion from?
Thank you, Madam Chair. John and Hans, what Mr. Ibanez has laid forward or laid out, he's looking at the financial side, okay? I share part of that vision with him because it makes sense, all right? There has to be fiscal responsibility involved also. And there's a lot of projections that may be not realistic that you guys presented. What is lacking in your presentation would be what you would charge for spectators admission, what you would charge for participants, and stuff like that. That would give him a better idea of your feasibility financially. And maybe we can write on the maintenance, if you're going to do maintenance by volunteers in your association, you know, like cutting the grass, maintaining the buildings, and the everyday maintenance of the racetrack. But there's going to come a time when you're going to have to pay someone to do that, and that's what he's trying to bring forward. And like I say, I share part of his vision on this. You base that on the 1,000 or the 500?
That's only 1,000. And I came up with proposals that we can present to Guam Motorsports Association based on the proposed lease agreements that we sent to them. And I can itemize everything based on a thorough review of actual lease agreements and how we can make this beneficial. And I think the most important thing here that we have to consider here, and I'll go into the business plan, Madam Chair, if I may, on page 5. One of their priorities that they mentioned is to provide the maximum financial value to COT that provides. And I'm looking at the 1, 2, 3, 4, on our priorities, which are on bullet points. Number 1, they talk about the feasibility financial plan for a nonprofit which does not generate revenue for 365 days. And then the last sentence, it talks about providing an experience to participate that is free. Okay, so when we go into the mission statement basically states on page 4, basically states that they will promote motorsport as a tool for youth development, community engagement, and STEMS education. And they aim to inspire individuals from underserved and underrepresented communities to engage in motorsports. Now, I bring that up because part of their vision is that this is for a community benefit, race park. And it will come with experiences without cost barriers or entities to our community members. So all of this brought up in their business plan can be incorporated into the lease agreement. If we do have a chance, we can sit down and discuss all of that, provided the members have any additional questions before on your Madam Chair. I would like to proceed.
What is your plan B,
Regarding
financial?
the plan is to, like I said in our previous,
No,
meeting,
your plan B. Your plan A, you provide here. You should have plan B.
plan B is to succeed. That is plan B, is to succeed.
That's the goal.
Correct. It's the plan too. Given the size, if we are able to acquire that amount of size, we can become extremely creative to ensure that COTC is paid. And at the same time, ensuring that the community doesn't have to pay so much to enjoy this property. Because ultimately, that's the goal, is to make it just about free to the community. And we're not trying to create large profit margins. That's never been the goal. The goal is to give our island a resource, for the island to enjoy.
I'm not against giving the island a resource, but you also have to look at the predicament for the CLTC. All right? CLTC is supposed to be revenue generating. Okay, and that being the case, under 2 acres is like 408,000 square meters. And if you take 1,000 and divide it by that 408,000 square meters, you're at 0.0002 per square meter. Now, if the shoe was on the other hand, would that be something that's acceptable to you?
It would depend, right? I guess it depends on who you ask the question and who's answering the question. There's a lot.
But the goal is to be financially solvent, both for us and for you.
Yes, sir. And for me, it's extremely simple. What's the number? If really that's what we're gonna talk about today is property size and rent amount, I think, yeah.
Well, Commissioner Ibanez has something to say, so let's hear what he has to say.
I agree.
In line with, just touching base on Commissioner Garrido's response in terms of our COTC, what we have to go back is understanding that the current budget bill that came into effect was to negotiate a non-commercial use agreement. And that basically is a non-commercial. If it was commercial, we can definitely make money. But how can we make this a non-commercial lease at the same time benefiting the community as a whole? There's many ways to do this. I have 2 proposals that we can go into more details, but there's many ways to ensure that this is fulfilled based on the mandate by the law itself, which was incorporated into the budget bill. I forgot what budget bill number, I forgot what number that was.
125.
125?
Yes.
37-125.
37-125. So that section in there is just a small 1-paragraph section that just says negotiate. When we talk about negotiating, and does not mention within the law itself to negotiate and execute a lease. So our goal here is to negotiate all certain terms, conditions, and ensure that we agree to both terms and conditions. At the end of the day, we may not agree into anything, but at the same time, we have to make sure that we are fulfilling that mandate by the law itself to negotiate non-commercial lease agreement benefiting the community, the public. Thank you. you, Madam Chair.
John, are you aware of the definition for commercial lease through CLTC?
I believe you guys explained that being at 10%.
Not less than 10%. So we were to charge you 2%, 5%, that's below commercial. All right, I don't know if you could even afford that, based on your submittal.
I would like to.
I would recommend that you as a group, because I know it's not just you guys, it's, you got Triple J in your pocket and Joey's company and the former senator, Itaku. Do a hard look and see what is your best offer. I want to see the racetrack open up again, all right? I do. And it's so sad that we had to close it down because of the misdealings of the former leaseholder.
I agree.
We didn't want to do that, but we had to because he was being so non-compliant and so many things that were being done were underhanded and below the table. I mean, a big company like Smith Bridge will not go into a business deal without any written documentation to support it, because they're going to have to use it at the end of the year as an expense write-off. Okay? But according to the former president, it was all done just over a handshake. And I like to take a handshake when I go in for my tax, when I'm doing my taxes, and say, this is the grounds for that deal and stuff like that. I don't see Smith Bridge accepting just a handshake. For their own sake, they would have to have something in black and white, so they can write it off with their taxes and it's an expense deduction. We're not at an impasse, but there are hard questions that need hard answers. And part of those questions are coming from Commissioner Jimenez. And like I say, I share part of his views. And we need to see how we can try and make this work for your sake, for our sake, and ultimately for the racers.
We appreciate that.
I agree, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys wanting to, given everything that you mentioned, wanting to accommodate the various disciplines. For me, number one, safety, and to follow our mission statement, which is GMA is here to provide a safe and controlled environment for our Guam's motorsports community. We have to maintain a balance. What we're trying to communicate here is, if we charge too much, then they're just going to go race somewhere else. So we have discussed all of these numbers as a board, and that's where we came up and voted on $1,000 a month is the offer that we're willing to propose. What I've done is I have a very basic breakdown of various of the pro forma that Commissioner Manz has mentioned, and this is just a simpler way of looking at it. But this is generally why, we are proposing the $1,000 a month. So I have it separated into two different things: the fixed costs and the variable expenses. And I'll hand this out. But basically, what we're doing is we're operating roughly around $10,000 a month, and these are just what we know, based on the input from our clubs and what it takes to operate the various disciplines. Of course, we would love to have the mountain biking section, because that's 200 plus or minus constituents that would be paying, entry fees, memberships, things like that. But the business proposal that I've submitted that you have there is very conservative. and the growth is at like a 1% year-over-year increase. So it's on the conservative side, just wanted to mention that. So I can hand this out to you guys and you can take a look at it. But roughly, we're paying about, what it takes to run this place is plus or minus $10,000 a month. And if we have a higher rent, we want to set this thing up for success. It doesn't do us any good for us to be back, a year from now. You guys have so much that you need to focus on, and we want to, all we want to do is give you possibly our quarterly updates or anything like that, just to let you know what we're doing and how things are going. But we are more than willing to accept a 1-year lease with 4 one-year options and go from there. And we want to set this thing up for success.
Are you, you want to speak?
I got a long
Well,
list. I'm
no,
saving mine for last.
What
I
I
got all
what
three
I
others.
don't understand is your membership. Those other members were part of the previous association. And based on the history of what they made, what fees they collected and all that, you could at least have an idea of what at that time they were making in order for you to do your business plan.
So say it again?
There's a lot of unanswered questions in what you're
Yes.
asking, and a lot of that because in the past, I see where you're coming from, is that GMA should be consulted with.
Yes,
The thing,
yes.
unfortunately, because they're trying to separate themselves from GMA and from the Guam restaurants, I don't think that they wanted to, them being a new organization, they wanted to more of take the realms on their own. Because you have that separate, Guam restaurant has major issues. And if they were to go consult, they may be leading the different directions. And I'm just speaking from what I'm seeing and what I'm understanding based on what you guys are trying to do, but you guys can elaborate more.
Yeah, if I may, we didn't want to follow suit with the prior leaseholder in any way. Besides giving the community an outlet for what they love to do. We didn't want to follow suit in mineral extraction. We didn't want to follow suit in high charging for racers and event goers. We wanted to approach this in a newer way that's more community based. I'm not interested in making money up there. Each member on the board, maybe we're not in this to make money up there. I think that's going to be the biggest difference with this organization, in comparison to the previous. The goal for the previous one, of course, was financial gain. For us, no, we do not want any personal financial gain at all. That's the biggest difference in them, and that's why, with the cost difference, I believe the previous leasehold was required to pay you guys $4,000 a month, plus probably some more fees, and they had the ability to extract and sell. They were granted legal ability to extract and sell minerals and aggregate. We want no part in that stuff. We want to do this different. We want to do it new, and we really want to just focus on the community. And that's the big difference between, like Mr. Danis was saying, was we don't want to charge people, $50 to come out and race with their kids. We want to charge people as minimal as possible. $1 a race, $20 a race, something like that. We're really not trying to make any money. We're just simply trying to make sure you guys are paid, and then we pay our bills. That's really it. That's the only priority, is to pay our bills and give the island an outlet.
There's key, you bring up key areas that are very important in what you just said, that's gonna incorporate all into your lease agreement.
Perfect.
That if I, but community involvement, free, less charge,
Yeah, that's one of the exciting things we've discussed. We want to make this about the community. We want the community to have a voice, all the racers, all the disciplines. you know, to have a voice. And
How often are you gonna be having those activities?
Man, if it were up to me, man, I want it every weekend, at minimum. I mean, at minimum, I mean, every day seems impossible because, you know, I have a job, other people we don't have jobs. So at a minimum, I'd like to see this facility being used every weekend, possibly even on a weekday for like a practice day or something like that. But right now, GMA is just comprised of a small group of people. The plan is to open it up, you know, to open GMA to the community so that like Hans was gonna say, everybody has a voice. That's really the plan, is not to keep this organization as just a couple guys. We wanna make sure the voice of the community is heard. Yeah. We wanna do membership and all of that. You know, once we get this thing going, we wanna open up membership to everybody.
What is your sponsorship projection?
Sponsorship projection?
What did you have, like, plans to have like annual general sponsorships and event sponsorships?
That would always be the goal. But the lease has to be favorable for sponsorships. A year-to-year lease is not necessarily favorable to long-term sponsors because they don't have the time to generate the revenue that they're gonna need. But even at that, we're still willing to work with it. So sponsorships, we can do event-based sponsorship. That's always been in talks. That's always a given. A lot of these automobile dealers, a lot of people wanna come up there and sponsor different events. But long-term sponsorship would have to, larger sponsorships would have to be comprised of a long-term lease or a longer-term lease. And that's just the
Well,
balance.
that's why I'm suggesting you have two general sponsorship.
Yep.
One general
Oh, yeah.
annual sponsorship and one for special events.
Oh, definitely a good suggestion. That's
That
part of
way
it.
you can bring money into your coffers because, and then what is your projection for your employees for the racetrack? I mean, there's gonna be an expectation of, for people to get paid for their services.
Well, that's the interesting thing about this motorsports community. That's where it gets extremely interesting, is for some reason or another, like Mr. Herrera pointed to last meeting, we always find a way to make things happen, not necessarily for a monetary benefit. We get volunteers daily, I mean, to host events, and being part of that community, you know, it's easy for us just to see it, right? Like, okay, so-and-so is gonna volunteer to run the race this weekend, you know what I mean? So to explain that to somebody it's extremely interesting. Employees, we do not have employees right now. A lot of these functions will be volunteer-based. And it's the passion and the drive that would surprise you on how these guys actually come out. Every single person in that video came out willingly, you know what I mean? Those were true members of Larry Castro, been racing and volunteering up at that track since it opened, never got once paid for it. Then the young fella there, Mr. Talon St. Nicholas, volunteers, as young as he is, he's been volunteering up there 8 years old to 10 years old. He's up there collecting trash and pushing a mower. So that's where it becomes really interesting with this type of community, is the passion is just driven.
That's why I said you could write off the maintenance because that would be all volunteers.
Hopefully we get enough to cut the amount. And then the good thing about this type of stuff is don't necessarily need to bush cut everything. You know what I mean? Going through some of the trees actually makes the race interesting.
You've been quiet. Yeah, any comments?
Commissioner Gavila's got the floor, so
Are you?
he's not done yet.
Are you?
I think, Madam Chair, a lot of the questions that we're posing can be incorporated within each section of the lease agreements as we move down the line. Because a lot of it, we're talking about the generation of how much you're gonna be paying, and it's all incorporated in the lease, what your fixed asset cost is, the premises, all of that. And that's what we were alluding last meeting, was go down the list, and then each area, each section becomes an opportunity to negotiate and expand further into that particular section. And then the most important one will be the premises, which will be the last to discuss.
I can understand your position. Going back in the 60s, when we'll go down the track strip in Harmon, and you just set up your cars and take off, right?
So my dad told me, yeah.
Yeah, and we did not pay an entrance. We didn't even pay rent for whoever owned that strip of land. So I can see where you're coming from. So where did we go from?
If I may,
Yeah.
I just wanted to reemphasize what Commissioner Garrido was saying, that you have these gentlemen in your pocket, the ones that he mentioned. Seriously, let's get this deal done, or, okay, do you have these guys in your pocket?
Negative.
Okay.
Financially, no.
For the record.
Yeah. Passion, yes. They are, every person he mentioned, extremely passionate. Joey races side-by-sides and used to race dirt bikes, but he's getting older in his age, so he's, Mike Limchiaco still races dirt bikes. The Joneses, they race their two-wheel drive or quad. So passion-wise, yes. Financially, no.
They're not part of your board?
Yes, they are.
They are. So they are. They have interest in the GMA.
Clarify that. Clarify that. You just said they're part of your board?
Yeah,
That's correct, sir.
Correct.
Okay, so if I go to your business plan, the proposal, is that an error?
I think they're labeled as members at large.
Yes.
Members at large, not part of the board itself. Members at large is different from being a part of the board itself. So just clarification, are we hearing something new?
No, nothing new at all.
Because if they are part of the board, then they're gotta be somewhere between,
They're members at large on page
yeah,
16.
the members at large, but
If you
members at large is different. I could be a member at large. Any one of us could be a member at large, but you said they're actually part of the board. So, and incorporated into the part of the board, you have some sort of function within the board itself. So just sort of.
No, yeah, they don't hold an, you're saying like a title?
No, you
Yeah.
guys,
If they're in the board,
they're part of
have
the
a
board.
vote.
Oh, yes, they do have a board. They do have a vote, that's correct.
So they have a vote?
That's correct,
So they
sir.
have interest in GMA?
But they're not members at large.
No,
Right.
officially they are members at large. I could send the
Yeah.
our articles of
Well,
incorporation.
if they have a vote, right, so they have an interest in whatever decision or planning you guys have?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so that's why on our last meeting, I was very clear that it was brought up that we don't need to provide financial statements. And it was paper. And I mentioned that part of any type of non-profit organization that have officers listed, and we can require that they provide financial statements, personal financial statements, business financial statements, whatever. Now, if they are members of the board, that organization, corporate resolution bylaws will show exactly where they fall into play.
Okay.
So that's where, we need further, I guess it needs to be clear, because I guess now we know it's a clear picture that they are.
Okay.
They have voting rights, which here doesn't provide, doesn't say much, they just say members at large.
Just to clarify, yeah,
Yeah,
they vote, yes.
So then they have a voting rights,
They have a stake in the organization.
pretty much they do.
Okay, so,
That makes, that clarifies that aside from the president, the vice president, treasurer, secretary, the other individuals have voting rights. So they could have a 1/3 interest into GMH, they could have 1/4 interest, 1/8 interest, all depends on how it's structured within the bylaws and corporate resolution, because they're different.
all right, because this bill became Public Law 37-125, right? So, this bill includes that there's a successorship clause that in the event GMA decides to have a successor take over, for example, Guam Racing Federation, it can be done. Or it could be a successor to A, B, and C, can be done.
There's,
That's one point. So, because I had the impression that it was you and Mr. Hans that were kind of organizing this from the beginning. And if it was just you, Hans, and Mr. Castro, right? And a couple of other backyard operators, my proposal, for the record, if these former members of the Guam Racing Federation have no interest at all in your operation, even if you were operating under Baja, for example, my proposal would be to charge you guys at non-commercial, not 10%, but 9%. Joe here is the expert on his scope. So can you take up, what was the value that we had projected based on revenue and taxes? Projection on the 250 acres was 8.9 million. The last time that we had tax and revenue.
Yes.
Projection, 8.9 million, Joe, just, no?
Divided by 252, 35,317 an acre.
Okay, right, so let's hit the number and multiply that at 9%.
Comes out to $3,178
Yeah.
per
So,
acre.
so then we go 9% of the 3,000.
All right,
Is that where it's coming up, 317?
3,178.
So, just to make the numbers here clear, and because I gave my colleagues here a chance, so here's my proposal, right? So if you can punch and joy 8.9 million at, and divide that by 252 acres, that will give us about 35,000 an acre, right? And then if you hit 10% of that 35,600 an acre, $35,600 per acre times 10% would be 3,500, right? So you divide that 3,500 by 252 acres, will give us about 3,500 an acre.
Divided by 252?
Right, 252 acres. We're gonna go 10% and 252 acres.
Okay.
Your number would have come out 890,000, right, on the,
If we're taking 10% of the DRT assessed value, it's 890,000.
correct, divided by 252 would be,
$3,531.
roger that. So now, per acre, 3,000 per acre.
Times
So
1
now-
and 2. Times 1 and 2.
no, you times 102, you're not, it's way over.
Wait, we're still at the 3,500 an acre,
Right, 3,500 an acre, at 10%,
times 10%,
yeah.
$353.
So now we go 9% of that, not hitting the mandate of 10% of fair market value.
9% of the 3,500,
Yes, sir.
$317.
Yeah. Times 105 acres that they're asking for.
33,374.
33,000. Now, of course, you're not gonna swing 33,000, but I would recommend that you go back to the Guam legislature that pushed this bill and request that they vote 8 or 10 and have them subsidize this 33,000. And you operate this under that subsidy. You just manage the place. They'll subsidize, and this will give the public almost zero to come in to operate. You just manage it properly. You follow, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Right? They're gonna subsidize, and they'll be paying the land trust at 9% at non-commercial value for, we'll try 1 year. Right? Zero from your pocket, you just manage it. but you're gonna have to get 8 votes from the 38 from the Republicans or the Democrats. And if it's 105 acres, then we'll see. But now that you verified that these former GRF members are here, then that just changed the whole concept, because they've been operating this place for the last, was it 98, Joey, since 1998?
I believe so.
To almost 20 years. 20 years, no?
25.
25 years, and then we gave them an option to renew for 50 years, 50-year option. They denied, they're saying that land trust pulled back, but there was a proposal for 50-year option. You guys probably already know the bill that was introduced, right? For 50 years to operate, but they denied. So now, remember, Joe, we've been having a hard time to find out what Commissioner Garillo was saying about handshake. Oh, it was just a handshake. Remember that, Commissioner? No, the handshake. So that handshake gave us the topography. You see this topography, right? The Duenas and Associate and TNG Engineering did a topography on the blue lines that you did to compute the extraction, the volume of extraction. But what was missing on that was the computation on that yellow line of that crater that you have on the far right, on the cliff line. Yeah. That was the first excavated crater by Perry's brothers. That was not computed. We know that, and that's one of the problems. Then the artery that goes up to the far end, right there, the tip to the right side, is the handshake operation. So if you look at the red line, I know that the senator that introduced this was saying that we were drunk because we were showing the wrong configuration. But if you look at the red line to the left of the triangle, right, is Route 15. That's the private property of Paris and Jerry Kramer. We know that. We went there. Joy and I went there personally, and we measured the property. We did a GPS, then we verified all the points. So where the drag strip ends, the blue line on the end of the drag strip is about a 65-foot cliff. Why was that there? Because the master plan was to have the drag strip down at ground level with Route 15. That's why the elevation is there, correct? So we already understand the master plan. So what we're saying here is that now we're here. So again, these former members of Congress and Federation have operated this, and they have introduced this to the body back in 1998 that we are going to make this super successful Grand Prix and all. So like Commissioner Ibanez was saying, right, what's the track record? So there's a 20-year track record. So now, fast forward to today, you guys are coming in, so.
Commissioner Guerrero, Madam Chair, if I may ask, GMA, do you have a copy of your corporate resolution in your bylaws?
I can send it to you. I was just pulling that up.
Do you have that with you ready available that we can?
Pull it up right now.
Because, you know,
I can email.
to get further clarity as to whether what you basically said, when you rest for a record that they are part of GMA.
Yes, sir.
And they have a voting rights.
Yes, sir.
That then clarifies exactly how the business plan was actually structured. Because it does, you know, you're presenting all this to us initially to get an understanding of who is GMA. That corporate resolution, your bylaws will show exactly how it was organized. Therefore, we can actually determine whether those previous members, like Mr. Birch and Mr. Adams said, have voting rights from what was brought up. That would further clarify the intent of exactly how we're looking at the GMA.
For all honesty, clarification, they have voting rights. I've never hid that. I've never been, I'm not one to hide anything. They definitely do. Question that was posed to me was, do we have them in our pockets? Answer is no. Just like the same, do they have me in their pockets? Answer is obviously no. And yeah, you know what I mean? wish I had pockets, mine's empty. But, you know, that is the truth, you know what I mean? I'll never try to operate in dishonesty, so I wanna make that real clear. Just to clarify, any questions anybody has, yes, they have voting rights, they always had.
Yeah. The analogy on the pocket, right, is that if you have 5 members,
Yeah.
you've got 4 members voting left, and
Correct.
1 member's right, that's the pocket.
I
The
understand.
majority rule,
Yes,
parliamentary procedure.
yes, sir.
And if there's only 2 of you, and I'm counting here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Correct,
you're outnumbered.
correct. I am aware of that.
That's the pocket.
Yes.
Or at least that's my analogy of a pocket, because we can go and follow the parliamentary procedures and the Robert's Rule of Order, and if we say aye or nay, and the ayes are saying something contrary to your projection, then that's the pocket.
I understand the concern.
But again, if this was not the pocket, that was my proposal, go back to the legislature, have them subsidize this, because they push to get this thing under non-commercial, and
That's right.
and you know, I work, I
That's
work
right.
diligently to look for non-commercial, and I cannot find
definitely-
non-commercial.
You're on the right track.
Both of us. Couldn't find it either.
Yeah, so if 9% or 9.99, and he's our number person, Joey's our number person, so if the legislature can allocate, guarantee the CHamoru Land Trust $50,000 a month, right here's the pen, sign it.
Both me and you would have signed that extremely quickly.
Yeah.
Truth of the matter is, I mean,
I mean, you know, I really
I
want to
think
get
that's
the
gonna
racing
happen.
going, so.
I mean, that's.
You're saying funds from the Gov Guam General?
No, I mean, yeah, I
would
mean,
be funding this?
truthfully, I
You're
mean,
right.
we could all agree here that that's probably not gonna happen. I mean, I'm sure.
Maybe
That's,
yes.
that's one way of us to get the infrastructure done in all our properties. So,
Understood,
please,
St. Augustine had a good one where he wanted to give you guys 300,000.
Well,
I
that
don't know if
was
that's
a-
good
well,
for
that
you.
was to clean up.
Yeah,
Oh.
but give it a try. I mean, you know, again, the legislature has, now
They have the
it has
power.
changed, it's, you know, from Democrat to Republican, right? So you got majority Republicans, so.
So who knows?
Well,
But that's my proposal.
I
So they
definitely will try. It's definitely a try.
I just want to add a little bit to what Commissioner Herrera was saying. When I mentioned pocket, it was because Joey owns Auto Spot,
Car split.
or Car Spots, who in turns sell Kawasaki and Polaris 4x or 2x, right? Off-roaders. Our friends, the Joneses, have high-powered vehicles. And they have Triple J tires, which is very beneficial on the burnouts for the drift.
So I think, Madam Chair, what we really gotta do is look at the overall, the positions of the board itself. When we look at members at large, they're individuals who are part of the organization, but they do not have a specific leadership position, such as officer or directors. They often are part of the general membership of the organization, participate in broader missions and goals, but without specific executable responsibilities. When you look at the representation, members at large, they serve as representation of the general membership, ensuring their voices are heard in decision-making processes. They're not part of any committees or boards, but in this case, it's mentioned that they have a voting right. So that's something that we have to really look at carefully, because from what we're saying and what we're actually looking at are two separate things. And now we're finding out that they do have members. They are actually represented with voting rights. Although the business plan shows their members at large, there's a big distinction between members at large and voting rights itself. Members at large may not automatically have voting rights unless specifically granted within the bylaws. If voting rights are granted, they usually pertain to specific matters. So we really, again, that's something there that's what the roles are, what the positions is, because that's a big factor into who is Guam Motorsports Association, and based on the submission of the business plan, where do they fall within the context of GME? that's a key factor there, so that's just the new findings that we're actually finding out now. I think throughout the meetings, I don't think I heard that they were part of it. I believe they were separate and not part of anything. But they did say members at large, so big distinction between what Mr. Allen and Mr. Birch mentioned in terms of the admin rights.
Oh, yeah, I mean, like I said, for clarification, they've always had. Unfortunately, you weren't part of the previous meetings, but I believe, you know, the other members have been here before. Yeah, I mean, each and every one of them, I believe, have been at different meetings at different points in time.
No.
Yeah.
Well, nonetheless, Madam Chair, the law says that we have to negotiate a lease agreement, and we can fulfill that negotiation based on what we have in front of us, the lease itself, and go item by item, and start negotiating some of the information and capitalizing and talking about what their plans are, how to make this and we talk about, they bring up key factors within this business plan, community, promoting youth for the youth development, community involvement, STEMs. They talked about it not being a nonprofit, and Mr. Birch also mentioned that they're not into making a profit, where they don't want to generate revenue from 365 days. It's for community-based racial park, in addition to what they're looking at doing, bringing back the water sports to the community itself. So we can structure, we can look at a lot of negotiating, a lot of ways to make this work. It's just a matter of whether they agree to allow the terms and conditions that are going to be proposed to them.
Yes.
John,
Yes, sir.
what are you going to be paying for your liability insurance?
That estimate was about $27,000.
What?
$27,000.
Per year?
Correct.
For $1 million coverage?
That's correct.
And who's the provider?
They were
Cassidy's.
looking into Cassidy's. It hasn't been paid, but it's a quote out there. Yeah.
So Cassidy's willing to take on that liability?
They mentioned it to us once.
We previously had another quote earlier this year from the Cubs.
And if you guys so decide to go back to the legislature for an amendment, that would be minus the successor to be part of the subsidized funding of 50,000.
I agree.
For 60 acres.
I agree with the point of nixing the successor. I'm not sure who put that in there or why it was put in there, but I totally understand the apprehension with that line. I'm as apprehensive as you are, so I
Well,
totally understand.
we can negotiate that into the lease itself too.
Or we can just scratch it out. We
You
can
know,
agree.
that's why you have the lease agreement, you can incorporate all that into lease agreements, and if both parties agree, even if the mandate of the law says that you can be successors, it's in that agreement that says they don't want a successor, and we can agree to that too.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I move to adjourn. I mean,
Will the GMA like to submit a updated business plan? Because your business plan covers the mountain bike area too. No, it's okay?
Well, you can exclude that in there, I mean,
Still comes
if
out
we
the
want,
same.
we can proceed, we can, I have proposals that we can incorporate to bring forward, knowing on their business plan, taking away the Railroad part, what their whole intent is on the terms of community-based, free to the public, working with the underserved, low to moderate, the STEMS program, all of that can be incorporated into the lease itself. It's just a matter of whether they're gonna agree to the terms and conditions that we set forth as a board. That's, well, my recommendation.
Madam Chair, would it be acceptable then to the board for Commissioner Ibanez to share with us so we can start putting in the recommended terms and conditions to address what Commissioner Ibanez had mentioned, just so we can get the draft going?
Sure.
And then we can forward it to GMA.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think
If-
the
if
board
we-
members agree to that?
If we can just get a vote or motion if the board agrees, just so that,
Oh, a motion to include,
for Commissioner Ibanez to share his proposed terms and conditions to place in the draft license.
so Madam Chair, I propose.
Based on the discussion of this meeting.
But
Oh,
Commissioner Herrera's
Madam Chair, may I would like to make a motion to have Commissioner Ibanez's
proposed terms and conditions.
proposed terms and conditions to be included in the,
To our draft,
to the draft.
draft ground license.
The
That's what it was.
ground license.
Not commercial.
Got it?
We need a second.
Oh,
Not
Second.
the lease agreement.
I believe it was called a ground lease
Real property lease agreement.
or real property lease agreement.
Right.
Yeah. Commissioner Herrera, if you can just
Mention
reference
it.
the title of the document.
so I would like to change the ground, I would like to make clarification to include that in the real property lease agreement, real property lease agreement.
I think if you
Change from,
if you just correct the entire, or restate the entire motion, just for clarity, just so there's no.
Redo it, just say it.
or I'll try again, I'd like to make a motion to include Commissioner Ibanez's draft,
Proposed terms and conditions.
proposed terms and conditions to be included in the real property lease agreement.
Between GLC and
Or between the CHamoru Land Trust Commission and the Guam Motorsport Association.
motion to say aye.
There's no second.
There's no second.
Oh. Sorry. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Oh, aye.
Everyone
Oh.
said aye.
Who second, just for the record?
Mr.
Commissioner
Chairman.
Garrido. Okay, so we'll receive the,
I'll provide what I drafted. It's gonna, it'll incorporate two parts. One is your proposal with maintaining COP's oversight based on what you provided. And if you don't agree, you got a second draft lease that's gonna be incorporating fee-wise. And you'll be able to see it clearly because I itemized, there's each section that needs to be looked at.
whatever we add, we'll just underline, just so that we keep the consistency. And then we'll forward it to you guys, as soon as it's complete.
Sounds good.
And raise the bar a little bit more.
What do you think? As far as the payment?
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, if we do, everybody out there in the street will, they're gonna have to determine, they're the ones gonna pay, not us. Not Joey, not Jay Jones. So if we raise it high,
That's where you have to become creative.
oh, I'm extremely creative. And my creativity is for the community and not
Because
necessarily
already
for profit.
So that's the community, is the people of Guam,
Correct.
and that's the legislature.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
And before we adjourn, well, maybe you can speak down to the 37 and have it, if you will, before.
They
10.
go out.
Not enough. Ask Senator Wade, SM, to Okay, make a motion to adjourn.
We have one more item.
Um,
The transcription of meeting minutes.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys. I really do appreciate it, and I know it's been a long one because it's a continuum. If I may ask before we leave, what happens next? Or do we wait for the next meeting, or what happens
What's,
next?
what's gonna happen is they're gonna incorporate our discussion and the proposal into the draft lease, taking into consideration what you have already reviewed, adding the terms of what you're asking for, but then at the same time, our changes will be underlined. That's gonna give you time to review it before our next meeting. I believe it was in,
But our next meeting's in January.
Okay. Any possibility of doing a Christmas event up there on the property? Clean it up or something like that? Any MOU to clean up? Is that on the table? Could we make a motion on that?
Right now, the board won't be able to address such a request or
It's not on the
because it's
agenda.
not on the agenda.
Oh.
so, Manager, right, if I may inquire, where there's, so the 26th is because it's the fourth Thursday of the month, right?
Our board, if we were to have a board meeting in December, it would be the 19th.
On the 19th, is there a possibility that we can meet on the 19th? That gives them enough time to look at our proposal because they're just getting the proposal and at least it shows faith on our side that
When this,
The question is also, there's a deadline for this, right?
for publication,
for which one?
December 10th.
for the 19th. So we have a time frame to submit the agenda to the post, but I think it will be,
We're still doing a resumption of,
if you guys should recess
Yeah,
and then continue again, that's totally up to the board.
the 10th is fine with me.
just recess, we just recess and meet on the 10th.
Yeah.
The 10th?
But
That's
that's
next
next week,
week.
Tuesday.
Okay. That's totally up to the board.
You have enough time?
No, mine is these guys, but they have enough time because when it comes in, it's gonna be on your board for it to, and then at the same time, you each will have a copy of what I propose, then you can sit down and agree and not agree, because when that meeting comes in, it becomes a clear picture of where, I mean, I left the footage purposes, so, you know, that again is still in the negotiating phase. It's not 175 to 200, it's whatever is being asked for, but it's in there.
As soon as we receive the proposed terms and conditions, we'll update the draft, we'll send it back to Commissioner Ibanez for his review, just to make sure we properly added it, and we didn't miss anything, and then we'll share it with GMA, and then we'll individually share it with each board member.
So that when we come back on the 10th, we are in agreement?
Yeah.
We'll basically come into.
Or any comments or.
Comments, which, they're gonna have comments, definitely they're gonna have plenty of comments. We're focusing on community benefit, we're focusing on free, we're focusing on all the aspects that their business plan incorporated. And then hopefully they can submit to us a copy of their bylaws and corporate resolution and the business license.
If you could email it, then we'll disseminate it before the board meeting on the 10th. Oh, wait, you guys said the 10th, right?
10th.
Okay. Okay.
That's good. Shoot, the 10th, I'm gonna make sure I bring a new pen so that we can sign it and get going.
Just so the board knows, we still, the discussion seems like it's gonna take a while. And I'm going to discuss with Attorney Miller. So what we did in the past is we drafted a sponsorship type document, which we will present to the board again, not in lieu of, but simultaneously while you guys discuss
The lease?
the non-commercial lease.
Sponsorship.
The summary of it is to afford someone the opportunity for 4 or 5 days to utilize that place, pay a fixed rate, get whatever needs to be done. And, you know, so that, because here, the board has already made it known that they do want the raceway to operate. But in the meantime, while we're still discussing or negotiating a non-commercial lease, and with the blessing hopefully of Attorney Miller, there's nothing to prevent us from offering or presenting to the board a sponsorship type document for the different, what is it? Like the drag racing or the motocross disciplines to come in and apply for something like that.
But that would be two different documents.
This will be a different item on the agenda because we have to.
No, but the documents is not gonna be
No,
incorporated in the lease.
It's a
separate.
totally different.
It's not a lease or it's not a long term, it's just to use the facility.
It's almost like going to DPR and getting a permit for the pavilion.
And you already have the insurance now? You already have an insurance?
Negative.
No.
They're waiting to the execution,
Oh, okay.
if they go through lease, then they go to the whole
So
process.
the sponsorship, right, if they're gonna come in and do a drag trip, for
There's
example?
gonna have to be some kind of waiver of liability and stuff like that.
Yeah, we won't operate without insurance being active.
So, all right.
But it's just to at least have some kind of weekend event for the different disciplines. In the meantime, while the negotiations continue.
And this is where you can get those in the bucket to get more sponsorship funds, right? For the weekend, for Saturday, Sunday, just for that particular weekend, and then, you know, it's like an Airbnb. You go in, you race, you come back, and we're done.
One of the current concerns with that is that we have to open up the raceway. It's nowhere near in the same condition as it was before, last year.
Yeah.
So it would take, a bit to get it back in operating condition. We may not necessarily have water and power and everything, but primarily it has to be safe. So will we be able to follow up on this site inspection and be able to address exactly what we need?
Site
If we're gonna negotiate on the 10th, let's negotiate.
As part of the
It was
the
recommended.
draft there's premises, a pre-lease inspection report. That's incorporated to your site inspection.
Yeah, remember what Chairwoman Arling mentioned during the Harmon drag strip? Right, everybody just come and give the drag strip in the middle, so drag down and then, return. Just use the red flag or green flag and
You're done.
I think the biggest issue, if the stories are correct, that's been shared with me, was the reason why that place closed down was because of an accident.
Right.
A married couple that got T-boned, and so then they had to transfer.
that's one, and plus a chicken
Correct.
fight.
And that's what's most important to us, is to prevent stuff like that.
Well, that's why we insist on getting general liability insurance.
Yes.
Yeah, and the good part when you mentioned was you got a lot of volunteer helpers. It made it very clear.
We'll hope so, right? Volunteers are as good as the wind, right? It's good when it's there and it's bad when it's not. It's hot when it's not.
So a lot of the onus is gonna be on them to fulfill what we're planning, proposing.
Just think of all the tires and clutches that are gonna have to be replaced, and transmissions.
And gas.
And these certain businesses which provide those parts and services, get NAPA on board with you guys, man.
Oh, I mean, the grand scheme of things is get everybody involved. Make it an actual public-private, partnership to get everybody, every aspect involved, that's for sure. But it's securing the lease that's most important, right? Making sure that we can actually afford the place and operating it safely.
A lot of tires.
Yeah, a lot of
Really?
tires. That's true.
Motion to go on recess.
10 minutes?
No, we got, 10 minutes recess?
We just have one more item,
What's that?
the transcript
We're done.
of meeting minutes.
Yeah, you can go.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, I know what it is.
Yes, sir. Always. I always like I never like to say no. I like to try to figure it out. That's what makes it interesting and fun. Appreciate it.
This should be quick.
Yeah.
So Madam Chair, the last item is 5E.
I'm sorry, Julie, just to clarify, what time on the tenth?
We'll know at the end of the meeting. We'll make sure to send you guys an email.
Okay. Thank you guys, have a good weekend.
5E, transcript of meeting minutes. So the board was provided a copy of the 5GCA Chapter 8 of the Open Government Law. There really is no specific requirement such as verbatim or summarization or anything of that nature. The reason why we're presenting this to the board is to get the board's approval for the formatting of the board meeting minutes. You guys see sometimes it's like 100-some pages long, but it's not necessarily required to be verbatim. You can always refer back to the audio. Although we will follow the requirements of the Roberts Rules of Order. And what we're proposing today is to transcribe the minutes in the format of what we know today as our motion summaries. So it's an exact it's verbatim of what the motion was, who made the motion, who seconded, and what the vote was. Just how it shows here.
You want the verbatim?
No. So it'll say, for example, Commissioner Herrera makes a motion just like he did earlier, and it was seconded by Commissioner Garrido, and when the chairwoman takes the tally, it will make mention of who says the ayes, the yeas and the nays.
The rest have the full motion. This is just the last sample
Where's the one with
with
the final?
The motions on.
to show.
Yeah, to show the format. Hang on, we'll get you a different copy that's a little bit more detailed. But it'll all be in line with what's required of the GCA and what's the formatting of the Roberts Rules.
But we're gonna be archiving all the audio.
Yes, we also provide that to the OPA. So since we also do have a website, we're gonna start loading it up to our website. And we will have an archive file, digital, recorded, or on a CD.
You know, this is actually good because it provides, the human resource that's being utilized to transcribe all of that is hours. And just based on the open government law, it does not basically specifically require minutes to be recorded verbatim. You know.
I'm for the summary.
Yeah, and then, you know, the law requires the minutes to include the date, the time, the place of the meeting, list the members present, absent, summarize the agenda, items discussed, record any motions, votes, decisions, and include any public comments and when applicable. This is sufficient. Unless there are any specific legal requirements to provide more detailed documentation, which we already have, showing and all over the documents that are being presented. I make a motion, Madam Chair, with that in mind, that our board minutes, going back to the last board minute, which is September.
September, that's not that.
Yes, for September, moving forward, that we incorporate into the summary itself. That will at least keep us in compliance with the law forward by I believe it's still okay, so we have to start submitting, make sure that all, after our meetings, we have a certain number of days to ensure that it's uploaded and
To transmit the audio. I think it's 5 days, I think, something like that. We already do, it's just like Commissioner Ibanez had mentioned. It's a time-consuming process, and sometimes our meetings go from 1 to 7 at night. But then again, the formatting of the motion summary will be
therefore they have more time now that we can utilize the resources.
we have a lot of
We
projects
have-
coming up.
We have a lot of projects to come up, but we also, most importantly, we have the leases that has been, the law that just passed regarding the clouds. And this is the one way we can now focus on allocating those leases and making sure that we're, everything's fulfilled, so we can start giving our beneficiaries their land.
So the format will be in line with the Robert's rules, made simple, the dues.
Yeah.
So it would be who made the motion verbatim,
Yeah.
who second,
Yeah.
when you do your roll call, how many ayes, how many nays. We can even make it to who voted yea and who voted nay. And if we need, the details of the discussion can always be referred to through the audio. But definitely it will enable us to get the minutes in a more timely fashion. And it will cut a lot of time to prepare.
So he made a motion.
Yes. We just need a second,
I
please.
second the motion, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Ibanez. Sir, if you don't mind, can you repeat your motion? Charlie.
Make a motion that our board minutes follow the rubber rules of order, that it be detailed enough to include all the requirements as set forth from the motions, the date, the time, who made the motion, public comments, and that our minutes moving forward, our minutes will start as of September, which is the last board meeting, or the last board minutes that was presented. So from September on forward, hopefully by January, we should have a complete minutes of all, yeah, starting from September.
Can we, if it's okay with you, the September is just one day to complete it? Can we start it from 1 October?
Well, that's,
'Cause I'm already,
I'm doing you a favor, if you feel you wanna finish listening to 6 hours of, meeting minutes,
just leave it
summarize it.
to September?
She's almost done with September, I guess.
Yeah.
She only
Yeah,
has
but
probably
she
a
has to
second one.
present it to us.
Yeah.
So it's better you just summarize it.
Yeah.
Summarize? Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
So does anyone second the motion?
Okay, second the motion, Madam Chair.
All in favor, say aye.
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 I have to say aye a little bit louder.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Can
And now,
Recess.
I make a motion for a recess?
until December 10th.
Before we
Until
make
December
the
10
motion.
at 1 p.m.
Yes, before.
This is in regards to our January board meeting?
No, it's just a recess, a resumption.
No, but I'm just inquiring about our January board meeting.
Okay, that will be discussed on December 10th. if you
Yes.
guys-
Okay, we wait till December 10th? No resumption?
Yeah,
Yeah.
But it has nothing to do with the resumption, it's just the agenda for January board meeting.
Okay, we can take note of it though, if you wanna make mention of it, that's fine.
Or you wanna
You wanna
include
make
something, you wanna include something for the January board meeting? Agenda?
go ahead.
Yes,
Go ahead.
residential and agricultural.
So,
And we need to move on that, we haven't even approved.
so just to give you guys a little update before anyone seconds a motion is, we've already started the compliance inspections, like I mentioned last meeting. We finished track 9210, we finished the entire municipality of PD. We're working in pneumatic now. And we're finalizing the notice to remediate letter, which is, will be sent tomorrow to Attorney Miller. In the January meeting, we anticipate, depending on the constituents' I guess, timeliness of submitting the documents we need. So we're gonna be interviewing applicants of the first 25 that we publish starting Wednesday. Now, based on their turnaround time, if they provide us the documents we need, we're hoping that we can present a lease award for the board's approval in January. If not, we're pushing it back to February. And at the same time, we're working on the newly enacted 37-131, which deals with the leases with clouds. Definitely, there's gonna be, hopefully, by January, there's a handful that we present, because we just did a compliance inspection for those who have constantly followed up on the status of their lease in relation to their SBA loans. But we still need to, in order to fulfill the requirements of the public law, we still need to issue them a notice to remediate. Just for a little heads up too, our inspection that was completed in PD, we've identified the named successor of a deceased lessee subleasing their property. So we saw a lease for like 25 years for $900 a month. This Wednesday, we're going out to do another compliance inspection, but this time we're requesting the presence of DPW. And from there, after our report, we're gonna forward it to Attorney Miller for his disposition. How are we gonna move? Are we gonna move to terminate, to decrease the lot size, if there's a house incorporated within the lot, the 15 acres or not? But we're gonna consult with him on that prior to presenting it to the board. But we are already moving. We are hopeful by January we have some to present to the board, either for a new lease, either it's because of their date and time, or a new lease because they've addressed the issues within their old lease with the clouds. So we're anticipating January to have a few residential and agriculture applicants on that for a lease award. Our process right now is very thorough for our commencements of our lease process. We have a application process and review, we have a land inventory process, and then we have the execution. So when we present these applications to the board, it's going to be in the form of a spreadsheet. So you'll see everything is in accordance, whether they meet the qualification or verification of eligibility for the program. They submitted the documents to convince the board they're able to comply with the lease terms in terms of residential. And they've already selected a lot and declined 2 other lots. So they can't come back 25 years from the time of their lease award and saying, I want to decline my lease and move somewhere else. We're presenting them 3 lots, whoever's up for a lease award, so that it addresses you have two times to decline, but you have to take the third. We're resolving all of that, and we're addressing it, and we developed a very, I guess, comprehensive system to where internally there's QC process built into it. So we can stand by the leases that we should start awarding going forward.
So just to be clear, when you offer one applicant 3 locations,
yes,
they can choose one of the 3?
They have to choose one of the 3 and decline the other 2.
And that would suffice for the 3 option too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because what has been going on in the past is you issue someone a lease. Today they come 20 years later and they want to decline that lease award and they want to move somewhere else.
20 years later?
Yeah. So, and if they made any improvements to it, I don't think they would want to move, but they did it. So.
Okay.
and we're only, leasing out properties that have been already pre-approved by the board for leasing. So, a few meetings back, the board had, approved a lot listing for it to be leased, so we're working based on that. And we'll maintain the amount at 25 per cohort, so we don't overwhelm ourselves. Because a lot of identification that is done to determine whether a lot is ready to be leased requires certain tasks to be done. And then also they're identifying large parcels of property. So if we have a scheme already done, that's helpful. But if no scheme is done on like a 30 acre piece of property, we're gonna come to the board to request the approval for us to reach out for assistance with the Department of Land Management for them to scheme the area, so we actually know how many lots are available or will be available within that. I've also met with a representative from RCAC last week, so we'll be sending those 6 lots that the board has approved for leasing to GWA to request if they can give us a quotation of what would it cost to install water and wastewater, so that when we proceed with RCAC and the application with USDA for water and wastewater funding, grant and loan, we have an idea of how much it's gonna cost. But there's still the requirements of the PER and the environmental assessment. So, we're moving, and we're not just moving one project at a time, we're simultaneously moving 10 different projects at one time with 9 employees, that includes myself. So everybody has hands in on everything. So that's just a little summary of what we're doing and what we look forward to in the coming months.
Good progress, good.
So, your motion to,
Okay, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to recess until December 10th at 1 p.m.
one is good.
Wait, yeah, Tuesday. Right.
Yeah. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Who's second?
I have it. That's okay.
Someone has to second.
Roberts.
Hang on.
Robert
Who's
said.
second?
I second.
I appoint him.
According to Robert.
All in
Take,
favor?
General Robert.
take the tally.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Everybody's, don't forget the time.
301.
301. Thank God.
It's only the resumption.